Hello, Carver and the rest of the world. Welcome to another edition of On the Air. For CCAT, I am Ken Simmons, the show that entertains, informs, and educates. And as you can see, we're here at the Plimoth Plantation. Never been here before, but in honor of Thanksgiving, we thought we would take you on a tour of Plimoth Plantation, whether you've been here before or not. You know, I think we're going to learn something about Thanksgiving that we never knew before. I'm talking to a few people, and already my eyes are wide open. So I can't wait to get this show underway, and neither can you. Take up your shoes, pour yourself your favorite beverage, and follow me while I meet my co-host for the day. Hi. I'm Ken Simmons. Who are you?
I'm Janet. How are you? Welcome.
Thank you very much. You're going to be my guide, my co-host for the day.
I'm excited. I'm going to go outside and see what's going on.
I can tell you're excited. Your eyes are flashing.
Wow.
Yeah. Let's go. I'm ready.
That's ready.
All right.
Well, you know what I learned in when I was in elementary school about what Thanksgiving was all about, or how it was a table set with both Native Americans, as they would say, and the Pilgrims, is very different from the story that we actually portray here at Plimoth Plantation.
Is that right? Okay, I didn't realize that.
It is.
This is my first trip to Plimoth Plantation,
Well,
and from what I've seen so far, and I've only been here like 5 minutes, I'm impressed.
Well, not only is it going to be your first trip, we're going to expect you to come back, because we're a destination not just for second grade field trippers, not just for families coming to visit, but you can come to us all year now. We're open year round, and we have many opportunities for people of all ages.
Oh, what a great thing. What does it cost to come in here with one person, for example?
Well, what I would do is recommend...
Is there a season pass?
There is no particular season pass. We have 3 locations, so depending on how much time the visitor has to be able to spend to visit our locations. You know, Plimoth Plantation, we would recommend 3 hours. Mayflower 2, we would recommend about 1 hour. And then our newest location, Plimoth Gristmill, which is in the original location of where the first mill was in 1636. Fantastic opportunity not just to learn about history, but science and technology. They each have individual prices. Then we have further discounted prices combining those. And what I'd suggest is just go to our website, which is www.plimoth, Plimoth, and I'll explain to you why we spell it differently, because you're going to ask, I know it, .org, and they can get all the information there.
You know, they told me that she may have a little trouble saying something or speaking. I don't see that she has that particular problem. And I'm very happy about that.
Oh, I kissed the Blarney Stone a few years ago. That's what my cousins told me.
Tell me, why do they spell it P-L-I?
It's a
M-O-T.
It's a phonetic spelling. In the 17th century, there was no standardization for spelling.
Good answer.
And we referred back to William Bradford's diary, or Mr. Hornblower did, when he incorporated this museum.
And we all remember that they came from Plymouth, England, right? They came from Holland, that I know.
Originally, but they were from all different areas of England.
Yeah.
First stop is going to be the Wampanoag home site.
Oh, great.
Yeah.
That's something I've wanted to see for a long time.
Oh. We're sitting in what the indigenous people would call as a gathering circle. It's a formation of stones that are in a circular pattern, and in the center actually has some pointed stones. And the point actually represents the middle of the circle as a compass would, as the direction. And if you would look at the stones, it's representative that there's a white stone actually on the other side of us. See right over there?
Yes, I do.
As the Wampanoag people are the people of the East.
How do you pronounce that? Wampanoag?
Wampanoag, yeah.
Wampanoag.
Wampanoag.
Wampanoag, okay.
I've heard it's actually been pronounced in 2 different ways depending on which community you are in, whether it's a Quinner or Mashpee. It's either Wampanoag or Wampanoag.
Ah, you know, this is this is a very comfortable little spot.
Isn't it? They would use this
There's
as
something peaceful here.
It is. Then that's exactly what they would do, as a meeting spot, as something to meet, meditate and just to relax and to gather.
Can we take a look around here as my eyes wander to the right, my right, your left? Can we just take a look around this beautiful, beautiful place? Is this something that was invented by the Wampanoags?
I don't know if it was
Or is
invented
it common
as much.
to?
I believe it was probably common to their communities. This is something Plimoth Plantation added just recently within the last few years, as we also just added a new ADA compliant walkway to be for those that have some trouble being able to walk, to be able to get from our visitor center to our exhibits.
I noticed that you can walk on that, and it's gravel or dirt or whatever, and you can walk on that with crutches.
You can, absolutely.
It's almost like cement.
Yeah, and actually, what it is it's a system that actually is sort of like a spring in your bed, like a foam system.
Oh, no
and there's
kidding.
a cushion system underneath this to be able to actually be comfortable to walk through.
Isn't that something?
Yeah.
I'm very impressed with that.
And if someone doesn't just is not able to walk down, we also have golf carts, so we'll be able to move our visitors from one site to another to be able to provide the best experience for them.
You hear that, you people viewing, this, I get very emotional about something like this because I'm a history buff. But I know that this goes around the world on YouTube. And there's people in foreign countries that see this. If you've never seen this, if you've never been here, even if you only live in Kingston, you gotta come here. This is gorgeous. I had no idea it was like it is. It's big. How big is it?
The campus itself is approximately 130, 140 acres, right around there.
Wow. You know what my image of this place before I came in here was it's a little place with a gift shop and a visitor center and a couple of paths where you're going to see some native people, and that's it. But it's much more than this. Is a dwelling place.
It is. It's a dwelling place.
It's a town.
It is. Let's go visit the Wampanoag and see where they are.
Aren't you lovely? Let's go. I'm ready. You're open year round.
Yes.
Suppose you get a snowstorm. We got a foot of snow. Do you plow this all out?
Well, these exhibits that we're going to visit right now are closed after Thanksgiving until the middle of March when we reopen. But we have things going on inside the visitor center that we actually do year round. Plus, Plymouth Gristmill is also open for groups.
Okay, and that's something everybody should see.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. Thank you for that.
The land, the place that we are standing upon right now, before the Pilgrims arrived, was called Patuxet.
See, I never knew that.
Patuxet. Patuxet. Yeah. And then when the English arrived here, they renamed it as Plymouth. But when they arrived, there was no one in sight as far as the Wampanoag people, because a lot of them had perished in the Patuxet community because of diseases that had overcome them from a lot of Europeans coming and actually trading here. So when they arrived, it looked like the land was available to be able to take. But those other communities that were nearby did know that they were here, and eventually the first encounter occurred in the spring of 1621. But one of the lessons we like to teach everybody here, and to correct history, is that they're not Indians and they're not Native Americans. Indians is a word that actually came about because Christopher Columbus thought he actually bumped into India, thereby Indians. But Indians are really from India.
So that's where that name came from.
Yeah. And Native Americans, not a lot of people would think about, well, why is it insulting to them or disrespectful to call them Native Americans? Well, America happened a long time after they were here. They were here for 12,000 years before the English actually arrived.
Wasn't America.
So as my ancestry is Irish and Italian, their ancestry and who they are, as I am now American, they are Wampanoag people. And if we could take one lesson away from this wonderful site that they're trying to show their culture and to teach people, is that they are Wampanoag people. They are still here. They are alive. They are flourishing in their communities in Aquinnah, which is Martha's Vineyard, and in Mashpee.
Let's go talk to some.
Yeah.
All right. I'm standing here talking with
John Rice.
John Rice. How are you, John?
Fine, I'm doing well today.
How long have you been here?
At Plimoth Plantation, 7 years.
7 years. You don't look 7 years old.
No, not 7.
What can you tell me about where we are right now?
Well,
You're a Wampanoag?
No, I'm not. I'm Native American, but my tribe is Choctaw.
Choctaw.
But most of the people here are Wampanoag, and there are 4,000 Wampanoag people on this end of Massachusetts, mostly from here to the Cape to Martha's Vineyard.
Wow.
And this is their site. So we celebrate here the continuity of several thousand years of Wampanoag people living in this area. These are the people of the first light. That's what the name Wampanoag means. People
Say
who
that
see
again?
the
Say
sun.
that.
People of the first light.
That's what Wampanoag means?
That's what Wampanoag means.
Oh, see, I never knew that. That's
The people that see the sun the first. It rises in the east.
Yes.
You're on the east coast, you see it first. So Algonquin-speaking people would call this the people of the east, or the people of the first light, Wampanoag. And the language is spoken from here pretty much to the Great Lakes, in an arc around the Iroquois who speak a different tongue. But the Algonquin tongue is spoke up and down the coast here and inward. So you have the Chippewa, the Huron, the Abenaki, the Wampanoag. They all speak a very similar tongue.
what happens at this time is Thanksgiving time.
Yes. Yeah.
And that's the reason we're here,
All right.
to celebrate Thanksgiving. How do you celebrate Thanksgiving, or do you?
Well, celebrating a Pilgrim's Thanksgiving was not something that would be in Wampanoag culture. No, it's not something. But the harvest celebration, which the first Thanksgiving is consonant with our culture. Native people do celebrate a harvest celebration just as English people did in 1620. So when your harvest is over, you got something in, you have a celebration if you had a good harvest. And that's, of course, what the English were doing. They didn't call it Thanksgiving either in 1620. They just called it a harvest celebration, and we would have understood that as something we celebrate as well.
So the word Thanksgiving has come down through the ages to what it is now. Now it's Thanksgiving.
Now it's Thanksgiving. Thanksgiving would have meant something very different back then, but a harvest celebration has become Thanksgiving. Yeah.
Yeah, of course. That makes good sense to me.
To
Yeah.
give thanks is not associated with food, but rather with time to pray and reflect on the blessings you have. So the ancient word would have been very different, have very different connotations.
You said that beautifully. What am I looking at here, John? What's going? Are those houses that I'm looking at?
Yes, you're looking at the representation of an early 17th century or earlier Wampanoag village. Actually, this is a Witu. This is called a Nushwitu. That's a Wampanoag word meaning three-family dwelling. So you have that's a winter dwelling that would house 3 generations of one family. And the village is, as Wampanoag villages are, matrilineal. And so a man would live with his mother-in-law, his wife, and his mother's family, and her family, and then the children. So that's what would be living inside that one
What a
house,
great
yeah.
idea. What's wrong with that?
Yeah, I think that's a fine idea.
That's
That
a
gives
great
the
idea.
strength that's the strength of your culture.
So they take care of their own, really. So
Right.
there's nobody in a rest home.
That's true. That's true. There are no rest homes. There's nothing like that in Wampanoag culture. Yeah. In the middle of the village now, you have a cornfield, and corn is a Native American invention. People sometimes don't realize that corn was invented by Native Americans.
Called maize.
It is maize.
Yes.
Yes.
I
And
want
it
to
is,
impress you with my intelligence.
well, very good. You're holding that very technological thing there in front of me. So I know
I am. Yes, yes.
But this is give you about 10 times the yield of native wheat of rye, barley, or wheat, which the English brought. But they did grow corn, and that's what saved them from starvation, because that is a greater yield per seed in the ground by 10 than wheat or barley. Yeah, and that's what they grew, and that's why they didn't starve to death.
Holy man.
So they were able to adapt quickly to what the local plant was, and the local plant was more advanced than the plants they brought in terms of what it yields from the ground.
Yeah.
Now we plant this here with squash and pumpkins. I mean, squash and beans. Squash is your pumpkin. But you 3 together, the beans take something out of the soil that the corn puts back in. And when you eat it, the beans ate with the corn will give you your proteins. So actually by eating beans, corns, and squash, you don't have a lot of need for anything else to eat. The rest of your diet will be seafood. When you go hunting, you hunt for your clothing. So your deer is used more for a skin than for a food.
Is that deerskin?
That's deer skin, yes. with
Wow.
native designs in it made from native colors. These would be from plants or from the clay, your colors here. And the same with my leggings. You see it's a finely made, it's a very finely made piece of material here, this deer skin. And this is a plant. My straps here are from plants in the area. This is very much like flax.
Now, is this warm enough in this kind of weather?
Yes, it is. It is warm enough, and what I have right on now is warm enough, but I must admit in the 17th century you would actually have bear grease on your body, and probably I would be bare-chested from my waist up. I would have nothing on.
At this time of year?
Yeah. Yeah.
Holy mackerel, gee.
Children would be trained to endure the cold. You know, they would be trained to get used to the cold. And then when you were cold, you didn't need the clothes, because part of you're adapting more to the environment that you're then trying to change it. You know, that's part of the mindset, and that's just the cultural differences. But over time we change, and the main thing that changes us is the adaptation of native, I should say, English tools. Now, once I start bringing in tools from England, something like this makes my life a little easier, and now I start to use English tools, because this is something that I wouldn't have made here.
This would not be done by the native people.
Right.
But you must have had something sharp to hunt with.
Yes, yeah, you had stone tools.
Stone tools.
Sharpened stone tools, very finely crafted. Take a lot of time to make something like that, and it didn't work as well as this.
This made your life a little easier.
It makes your life a little easier, yes. The coming of the English is a mixed blessing. I mean, some of it is definitely an improvement on your life, and some of it is drastic.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Certainly the viruses brought over by domesticated animals is something that makes for your life very hard. I mean, half the people die here from viruses brought by cows.
So there was a lot of smallpox, yeah.
Smallpox
I
is
read
very
someplace
devastating.
where the English, the native people gave the English tobacco, and they in turn gave them smallpox.
Yeah, I'd say that's kind of prejudiced, you know.
Would you say it was prejudiced?
Yeah, I'd say because it's a mixed blessing. They do give you iron tools, and you got to take the whole story. What's the whole story?
Yeah.
The story, you wouldn't get hooked on you did get hooked on English consumer culture.
Yeah.
Basically by the superiority of the tools, and that has to be part of the story too. Now, the domestication of animals is something that brings the pox, and that's nothing done intentional.
Yeah,
But that just has to happen,
Right.
because they come with the smallpox. The virus itself morphs out of the cow's belly into the human belly, because cows and humans are living together in England, in Europe. And when that comes over here, there's no defense against it, no
No
antibodies.
defense at all. No.
Yeah. So over time, the blessing itself is more and more mixed, more or less in your favor. You know.
Yeah, absolutely.
But certainly at first you say, well, this is an improvement on your life, which is what brings why English people are allowed to stay here.
Is there anything else you can tell me about what I'm seeing?
Yes. Now you have over here machine building. This is how you built a ocean-going boat in the 17th century, and we did do a lot of fishing on the sea.
Yeah.
In fact, Wampanoag hunted whales out of these boats. They had harpoons.
They hunted whales out of a boat like that?
Yeah.
Holy
Had
mackerel, that's incredible.
Well, yeah, this is kind of a daredevil culture.
Yeah,
You
really.
try some dangerous things, but it also brings you something in return. But yeah, that's none of that. And Tim can tell you about that.
Okay.
Now inside there is where you sleep and where you store your tools. Your life is outdoors. You don't really live indoors at all. And because of that, you breathe good, clean air. You're very active, physically speaking. And so your lifespan is probably 30 more years longer than the average Englishman that comes over here. You're probably living to be about 70. The English are living to be about 45 on the average.
And the years you live were probably much more productive and much more healthy than their years.
Certainly more healthy.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know about the productivity end of it, but certainly more healthy. Now up there you have cooking, which is done outside. And so you can go to that site there and see how the women cook.
Yep, okay.
Now women do the cooking, women do the farming in the ancient culture. And the men do the hunting and the fishing.
Makes sense to me. Makes sense to me. John, I can't thank you enough. You're a very articulate man.
Well, thank you, sir.
You gave me more information than I ever hoped for, and things that at my age I should have known but didn't. Thank you so much.
Well, you're welcome. My pleasure.
Talk to you again.
All right.
Happy Thanksgiving.
Thank you.
Everybody that works here in the Wampanoag program, we're all indigenous people, but not all Wampanoag. There's about 5,000 Wampanoag today, mostly down in Aquina, Martha Vineyard Island, and Mashpee. And not all of those 5,000 want to work for a nonprofit living history museum, and not all basically should. So we have other native people from other nations that represent the Wampanoag that are here. And like myself, my people, the Cherokee, are from the Carolinas.
Cherokee. You know, when you say Cherokee or Lakota or it just
Navajo.
Navajo, it just brings. See, I'm like a kid, and it just brings back the rush of memories. That when I was a kid, I used to think, "Wow, isn't this incredible?" I have never known what was going on, but I know now. I got to ask you a question.
Sure.
How do you celebrate Thanksgiving? Do
Well,
you celebrate Thanksgiving?
That's a very good question. Some Native people celebrate Thanksgiving. Some people don't. For most of the Native people, it's a day of reflection for us. It's a day that we think about our ancestors and we reflect on them and our future and who we are as a people. It's not generally something that you see like people sitting down and having turkey dinners and all that. But we did have Thanksgivings in the time period. They were just different than the Thanksgiving that we have today. We have strawberry Thanksgiving in the spring when the strawberries become ripe.
So you're celebrating the harvest.
Well, we're celebrating a harvest, yes. We certainly do that every year, too. We also celebrate when the corn gets green, when it gets to the sweet stage. There'd be large celebrations around there, and we would give thanks for the Creator for giving us a beautiful crop. So we did have Thanksgivings, just not like the Thanksgiving that a lot of people think of today.
Yeah, sitting down with the turkey, the stuffing, the cranberry sauce, and so forth and so on.
Yeah, we should actually be having venison, because we know that Massasoit brought 5 deer.
Okay, that brings up another question, if I may.
Yes.
I have to ask the question when I think of it because of my age, it goes out of my head very quickly.
Even at my age.
No, you're just a baby. You're just a kid. You see, Massasoit was the leader of the Wampanoag tribe?
He was the leader of one village. There were more than 69 different villages of Wampanoag.
Holy mackerel, is that right? I didn't know that. And each one had a chief.
Each one had a chief, a sachem as we call them.
Sachem, yes.
And his village was 40 miles away from Plymouth in Bristol, Warren, Rhode Island today. And that's where his village was. It was called Pokanoket, which means it's the divided land.
Is that where his village was when they landed?
When the Pilgrims landed, yeah. The closest natives to the Pilgrims actually would have been 15 miles away in present-day Middleborough today, and that was the Namasket people.
I've heard of Namasket, yeah.
The people that were here had been killed off due to a plague or a sickness that struck here in 1616 through 1618. There was a European sickness that came down from Maine, and it wiped the entire village of Patuxet Wampanoag out here. The only survivor was Squanto, and he was over in England when that happened.
Wow, I didn't realize that. Well, how come Massasoit came all the way 40 miles to rally around the separatists or pilgrims?
Well, you know, everybody talks about the peace agreement that the Wampanoag or that Massasoit and the Pilgrims had. Really, what it was a mutual defense treaty. It's kind of what we have with Russia today. Basically, anybody that was going to attack the English, the natives would have come to their aid, and vice versa. That plague that affected the Wampanoag here affected Massasoit's village greatly. And so at the time, in the early 1600s, there was a war going on between the Wampanoag and their closest neighbors, the Narragansetts. Well, the war had subsided because of the disease that had come through here, and Massasoit was paying tribute. He was giving gifts to the Narragansetts so they didn't come in and take out the rest of his village. Now, when the Pilgrims came, they had one thing that the natives were looking for, and that was the thundersticks, the guns. They wanted to use the English guns to threaten the Narragansetts to kind of back off. And that's why Massasoit signed an alliance with the English, to have that protection, or at least that threat of protection anyways.
I don't know about you people sitting at home. Did you know that? I never knew that. I thought Massasoit was a nice guy who lived close by and saw these humble English people landing here and didn't know how to fish, didn't know how to eat in December, and they were cold, and he wanted to help them. Is that true at all?
Yeah, he actually didn't. They actually didn't see the Pilgrims. Well, they saw them. The Pilgrims saw natives kind of in the woods, kind of shadows of natives, but they really didn't see a native until Samoset walks into the English village in March. So it was several months after that the English had been constructing their homes and everything else. And Samoset, he's actually the first one that walks into the village, and he welcomes the English, and he welcomes them in English.
Oh, wait a minute. Now, how can that be?
Well, he had learned his English from earlier ships, fisherman ships and trade ships. Samoset was a sagamore, a chief from up on Monhegan Island, Maine. And he was brought down with Squanto by a man named Dermer as guides. And Dermer ends up leaving them here with Massasoit, and Massasoit uses those guys to contact the English.
Wow, you have a wealth of information. I got to ask you one more question before I leave.
Sure.
I've never been clear about King Philip's War. Was he a native to these parts?
King Philip was the youngest son of Massasoit. Massasoit, who dies in 1660, his older son takes over, whose name, the English name Alexander, and his real name is actually Wamsutta. When Wamsutta dies mysteriously in 1662, Philip takes over as chief. And so he's the youngest son of Massasoit.
I see. I never knew that either. He was a
So
wise.
that's why you have to come to Plimoth Plantation.
Yeah, absolutely. It's my
Yeah.
first trip here. It's my first trip. And listen, as time goes on here, as the day goes on, and it's a rather chilly day, but a beautiful day, if you don't come here to see what I'm seeing and more, then there's something wrong with you. You've got to get off your duff and come here and see this living history. And guys like this who aren't afraid to tell you what really happened. I think this is just phenomenal. Wow, what a great I'm talking to the people in back now who are executives here at the Plimoth Plantation. What a great organization you've got here. I'm so happy that I came here today, and I thank you, Tim.
Oh, thank you for coming.
I'll see you down the waterfront.
All right, we'll see you down there.
Buy you a cup of coffee.
All right.
Thank you. Ah, gee, boy, I'm here with Melanie.
Yes,
Melanie what?
Melanie Roderick.
Are you a Wampanoag?
I am. I'm a sonnet Wampanoag.
And your clothing is just stunning.
Thank you.
What are you wearing? This.
I have this is my winter coat. So it's a cape and it's a white-tailed deer fur, and then I've got raccoon fur sleeves. Some faces. So they just go up and they're a separate piece. They attach in the back.
Now, did you make this?
I did not paint this one. No, I didn't. It was you can see the
Oh, look at
paintwork
that!
here.
Look at
It was
that!
done by one of our other staff members here.
That's absolutely beautiful. Is there any significance?
No, it's decorative.
Just decorative. Yeah.
And then my top and my skirt are deerskin as well, but with the fur taken off. And this is a mineral paint that we use for all these painted decorations.
This is a mineral paint. Isn't that something?
Charcoal, ochre for reds, and yellow and oranges.
And your boots?
My leggings are raccoon as well, and they have some painted designs on them as well. And then my shoes are from elk skin. It's a bit thicker than deer. We like to use moose or elk. Seal was used a lot in the winter time too for winter shoes. They're thicker hides than deer, so it lasts longer.
Now it's a chilly day. Are you warm?
I'm warm now, yeah.
Yeah.
Absolutely. I just put my coat on. I had just my sleeves until the sun started to go down, so I put my coat on. It's getting a little chillier.
Yeah, it's just beautiful. I don't know what else to say. These skins over here, are they all deer skins?
They are, yeah, white-tailed deer.
And they are just simply beautiful. Thanksgiving. What do you do for Thanksgiving as a Wampanoag?
Well, me personally, I usually am here working. It's an all-hands day for us here at the museum, so for the past 16 years, this is what I've been doing. But, our families do gather, but it's a lot less of a celebration for us. It's more of a time of reflection and mourning,
Yes, I'm learning this. It's my first trip to the plantation.
Is it?
Yes, and I am so enlightened. I thought it was a place for kids. Is it someplace?
We get plenty of them.
You do get plenty of them, and that's great. But it's also a place for adults that want to be enlightened.
Absolutely.
I've learned a lot.
Good
And
to hear.
Thank you very much for talking to me. And I
Absolutely.
now know that Thanksgiving really is a blessing for the harvest, is a thank you for the harvest that we've had this year. As a matter of fact, Tim was telling me they have a strawberry Thanksgiving.
We do.
Isn't that great?
We have many Thanksgivings throughout the year. Yeah.
And you know, one thing I did know before coming here is that Native people were the first conservationists.
Absolutely.
And if we had listened to them, we'd be better off today, I think.
We'd have a lot less mess on our hands.
And that's a political statement, and you can correct me anytime you want. I'm acceptable. I accept phone calls and letters. But I do think that Native people were the first conservation. They used to move from place to place after they didn't want to wear out a place.
Right. You didn't want to overuse your resources.
Didn't want to overuse the resources, much better put.
Right.
Thank you so much for talking to me, Melanie.
Welcome. Nice to meet you.
And I'm going to say Happy Thanksgiving.
Okay.
Okay. Where are we, Janet, now?
Well, we just left the Wampanoag home site, and now we're about to enter the 17th century, the English village that is set back in time in the year 1627.
1627, isn't that great?
1627.
Let's go and see.
Yeah.
All right.
One of the things I do want to let you know is that this is not the original location to Plymouth Colony. That is where today stands Plymouth Rock, where Mayflower 2 is. Across from Plymouth Rock is Coles Hill, where the first houses would have been built when they first arrived. That's the original location. You know, you can walk up Leyden Street to Burial Hill. You can see the original location of where the fort is, and we're about to go into the fort right now, the recreated fort. So come on.
Who am I talking to, please?
Oh, my name is Mary Winslow.
And you're from?
Kent, originally, Sandwich in Kent.
Kent. Wow. And you look like a beautiful young lady. How old are you?
Very kind. I've got about 20 years.
If I mentioned Thanksgiving to you, would you have anything you could tell me about Thanksgiving?
For me, a day of Thanksgiving is a day of fasting and prayer. It is, if you are thankful for something that the Lord has given you, like a child or a good harvest, you might have a day of Thanksgiving.
How long have you been here in this particular area?
I arrived on the first ship, so close onto 7 years.
When you say the first ship, what was the name?
Mayflower was his name, Master Jones, his ship.
The Mayflower. And do you find times hard here?
Less so now. We've seen it improve in the years that we've been here. We've had a difficult few years, but now it is improved. We have hope for our future comforts now.
So it's getting better as time goes on. Have you children?
Not yet.
Okay. Are you married?
I am. Just a bit less than a year now.
Oh, congratulations. That's wonderful, wonderful. This new land, is it to your liking, or would you rather be back in Kent?
There are things that I should like to see improved about this place, most certainly.
Such as?
More civilised things like a mill or having markets here that we could make use of.
But that'll all come, don't you think?
Hopefully, in time.
Are you happy with the leadership?
With our governor?
Yes.
Yes, of course. He has been elected for the last 6 years, Master Bradford has. He's got assistants now. He's got more than he did before. My brother-in-law is one of them.
Your brother-in-law?
Mm-hmm.
And his name?
Edward Winslow.
Edward Winslow. I'm familiar with the name Winslow. Could you enlighten me?
Oh, well, I suppose the father of my husband was a lesser gentleman back in Worcestershire.
In Worcestershire.
Yeah.
And that would be in England.
Yeah. In Droitwich.
Now, when you arrived here on the Mayflower, did you come from Holland or did you come from England?
Right out of Holland. I spent more of my life in Holland than I did in England.
And why was that? Why did you leave Holland?
My parents had separated from the church back in England, and so in order to practice as they wanted, they went over to Holland, where they're a bit more tolerant.
If I use the word pilgrim, would that mean anything to you?
It's someone who's travelled to a Holy Land, certainly.
Yes, that's a very good answer. And I thank you very much
You're most
for talking to me, and I wish you all the best here in this new land, and I admire your courage. And you're just a lovely person to talk to.
And you as well. Thank you for the company.
Thank you so much. Goodbye.
Safe travels.
My name's Edward Banks.
Edward Banks.
Yeah.
What are you doing here? What's going on?
Right now we're working on a dwelling house for Goodman Cook and his family.
Goodman Cook.
Yeah.
Is this? How long will it take you to finish this?
Oh, I mean, I'm in charge of doing the frame, what is like joining up all the timbers, and that should take 2 or 3 weeks.
2 or 3 weeks.
Yeah, and then it might take Goodman Cook and his family like 3 months or something.
Winter's coming on. Will you have it finished by winter time?
It probably won't be a dwelling house by winter time. They'll probably be without the rooster by then, but hopefully come the spring, they'll be able to live upon it.
How long have you been here in this new land?
I've been here for about 4 years now.
4 years. You
Yeah.
come over on what ship?
The Little James.
The
Yeah.
Little James.
Yeah.
That was after the Mayflower, of course.
Yes, it was about 3 years after.
And how do you find life here?
Yeah, I mean, it's much harder than back in England. Yeah, I mean, just the day-to-day activities. You know, you have to farm for your own food, and you can't just go to the market. And I mean, even just framing a house, it's like if you need another timber, you don't just go to the market and buy a beam. You got to go to the woods and chop the tree down and hew it and all that sort of thing.
I can't even imagine
So
that.
it's much harder than back in England.
Yeah.
But the prospect of owning land is what brought me here.
Are you glad you're here?
Yeah, I mean, from day to day, it depends. Yeah, sometimes I wish I was back in England, and then sometimes, you know, we see the sweetness of the land,
Yeah.
and I'm glad I come.
I think that things are getting better as time goes on.
Yeah, they have been. I mean, there's a lot better than when I come here 4 years ago. And even I had an easier time than the first comers.
How is your relationship with the Wampanoags?
They're like the naturals in this area. It's quite good. I mean, we have a military alliance with them. Yeah, we trade with them and things like that. Yeah.
And are they peaceful generally?
Yeah, generally. I mean, the Indians in this region are quite peaceful, but the Narragansetts down south, they're a little bit more war prone, and they're natural enemies with Massasoit. So that's why you can see the large palisade all around the whole village.
Oh,
that's
yes.
why we have that up.
The village is lovely, I must say. This is the first time I've seen your village, and it's absolutely gorgeous.
Yeah, yeah. Well, I mean, I guess you could say that. It's kind of just sort of small cottages and things like that. No proper
Yeah,
homes.
but it's so,
Yeah.
the accomplishments since the Mayflower came are just remarkable.
Yeah, well, I mean, there wasn't nothing here when they come. So it is quite a sight. I mean, it's a lot different than 7 years ago.
What's the population here now?
I mean, I wouldn't be sure about that. It's probably 160 or so, but Governor Bradford would know a lot more about that.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you very much for talking to me, and I wish you all the best.
Yeah.
And if I said Happy Thanksgiving, that wouldn't mean anything to you, would it?
Yeah, it depends which Thanksgiving you're talking about, yeah.
Yes.
I mean, I don't have a reason for giving thanks just now, but yeah.
You will.
Yeah, hopefully, yeah.
Thank you again.
Yeah, goodbye you.
Good luck. You were the governor of this?
By election, yeah. Again, it was subsequently to the death of Master Carver, who was our first governor elected. He was elected on the 25th of March, 1625. He died in April, not long after the Mayflower sailed in that same year. And there was another election held, and myself elected as governor, and Isaac Allerton, my first assistant. Though in fact I was unable to take office for about a month or so, being too sick and injured at the time.
Sorry to hear that. Are you feeling well now?
Oh, goodness, that was a long time ago, but thank you, Master, for your concern. Yeah. No, it seems that my neighbours have been pleased to elect me each year since that time.
Can I ask a rather stupid question? Why did it take 5 years to elect a governor?
Oh, goodness, it did not. Mayhaps I have been unclear in my explanation. Our election is each year on the 25th of March. It was in 1621, in April, I was first elected. And then I was subsequently elected in March 25th, 1622, March 25th, 1623, March 25th, 1624, March 25th, 1625, 26, and indeed this year.
Thank you so much. That was a very good explanation.
It's all right.
Do you find the job arduous?
No, not usually. Actually, by now, after near 7 years in the country, most of my neighbours, even those that are not so well informed that they favour to be members of our church, are law-abiding, orderly people and hard-working. Actually, I have little complaint regarding my neighbours. Sometimes people ask me about the natives, and actually most of our dealings with the natives have been profitable and presently peaceful. Though I would make moan they're lacking central authority in New England. Actually, I have more headaches with Englishmen these days than anything else.
Well, you have no problem with the native?
Not presently. But the only difficulty I have regarding natives is that the Massachusetts Indians, which we did have some conflict with about 4 years ago, have fallen somewhat under the sway of a separate English plantation at a place called Mount Wollaston. And the man who was the governor over there, or does suppose he is, this man named Morton, aside from keeping what I should regard as a school of atheism in that place, which is something I might dislike but cannot hold against him entirely, he is accused of having traded firearms and shot and powder with those very natives. And this is against the acts of King James of 1617, and yet because he is outside of my jurisdiction, all I can do is send a letter explaining my discontent and asking that he would not do so and explaining the reasons. He sent a letter in reply as if to nose me, and he doth say King James is dead, and so are his proclamations.
Oh my word, that's kind of provocative.
He's a barrister.
A barrister.
Heard of barristers?
Yes.
Need of such a thing in New England.
A barrister being a lawyer.
Indeed.
Yes. As governor, do you have like a cabinet, or do you have people
yes, I have assistants. A few years ago, actually, I asked if I would be provided with a couple more men that could assist me on some of the more, well, if there is a broad matter, then the entire court is assembled. That's all the male planters in the company, 21 years of age or more. But that would be inconvenient for all matters, and so for matters of executive decision, myself, Isaac Allerton, is my first assistant, and I have 4 other men who are assistants. We sit on the council. When we shall make decisions as a council, I have 2 votes. They each have 1. I also consult with Captain Standish and Master Brewster.
You're such a young man. The responsibility of being governor must be, does it weigh on you?
I fear my wife doth accuse me of being melancholy from time to time.
Oh, really? Well, I would imagine so. You've had such a great responsibility, but you've done such a great job. Your village, as the first time I've been to your village, it's fantastic. It looks gorgeous.
Oh, Goodman, you are indeed a very flattering man. My first assistant somewhat reminds me of yourself. I sent Isaac back to England to negotiate some of our business, and Isaac, like yourself, a very kindly man, understand what things to say that might make a man feel well.
Well, I just feel that, being in your position, putting myself in your position, I don't think I could handle the job. And you've done such a great job of it, and still maintained a certain amount of your charm.
Well, Ken. I'm rather taken aback by your kindness, sir, but some of my neighbors may not say I'm quite so charming.
That may be. However, I thank you very much for talking to
So
me.
much my pleasure to have made your acquaintance, Ken.
Thank you.
God grant you safe travel.
Thank you so much. The harvest of 1621, how do you feel about that?
Well, I've
Any
somewhat
comment?
fond memories on it. I seem to recall our harvest being newly gotten in. It would seem that the folk of the town deserved that they might have some rest and respite from the heavy labours, and a feast thus to be arranged, which actually occurs to me that the women and those that were engaged in the making of the feast were hardly resting at all. But it was a day of celebration. The occasion, I should think, in praise of God for our good success in our harvest, and that we did still persist. I recall that shot and powder being rather low. Only 4 men were sent forth fowling, and yet the bounty of the country is such they were able to shoot so many birds it seemed you might feed the town a week.
Wow.
There were only, though, 43 of us, all told at the time, and it is, as I recall, I should think about 24 of our number were actually children.
Were there any Wampanoags here?
Not then, but you see, one of the things that I did was I ordered Captain Standish to take the men and have them put on their armour and exercise their arms for the entertainment of us. And that involves marching up and down the town, pointing muskets at marks and taking shots at them, much beating of drums and blowing of trumpets. And I'm afraid the clamour may have been what caused the natives to come. The native king, Massasoit, has been since the spring of 1621 engaged in an agreement of peace with us that is something of a mutual protection treaty. And so 40 miles away, I suspect he may have gotten word that there was shooting going on and drums and trumpets. And, well, I would hold if you were Massasoit and I had word that you were in trouble and I had a means of assisting you, I would attempt to honor our agreement. And I should find the Indians, if not what I might define as good men, they are honorable men. And much to my amazement, there did come some 90 enormous warriors, painted and carrying their weapons, and their very king with them. Something to the effect that they did seem to come as though they would relieve us from some danger. And then it was rather awkward, because, of course, now, 90 enormous warriors, a feast for 43, half of whom are children, might not suffice. But nonetheless, courtesy insists that they would be invited to join us. And so I asked their king if he and his men would join us. But their king did seem to have a similar opinion of the circumstance, caused several of his warriors to go and shoot some deer, and then did something unprecedented, where he sent men back to the neighboring towns, where they were caused to invite their wives and children to come forth. I think this is probably the first occasion that there was much acquaintance between the women and children. For they were generally much separate. If you were an Englishman, unless you were Winslow, when I sent you out to see Massasoit, you had little experience of native women and children. If you were native women and children, you stay with your people. You don't come here so much. And so it gone on for about 3 days, honestly. And eventually, I think there may have been as many as 200 of them through the town. They eventually went home. The next time we had any occasion where there was any feasting with the natives was once again rather surprising when, on the occasion of my marriage in 1623, Massasoit and his wife and his family and a large entourage did arrive to pay respects to my wedding.
Wow, what a great story.
You're very kind.
What a great story. Thank you so much. Thank you so much.
Like my heart, sir, I frequently spend a lot of time thinking and talking about dark things, but you might likely understand that my work is not always miserable.
Yes, it was great. Thank you very, very much. And I'm exhausted. I'm cold. I'm shaking. But what a day. And I can't thank you enough. You were so informative and so nice. And all I can say is a humble thank you.
Oh, well, you know, we were honored to have you here today.
Oh, it's
as you
my
can see,
ears.
the staff are phenomenal in their interpretation of the Pilgrim story and the modern interpretation from the Wampanoag people.
You people do such a great job.
And would love to
here.
see you back. You know what? We're open until December 3rd this year, and we will reopen for our 2014 season on March 15th.
I'll
so
be back with
come on
my
back.
grandchildren. You can count on that.
Good.
Thank you very, very much.
You're welcome.
Is there
Anytime.
anything you'd like to say to the people while we've got the cameraman pointing right at you?
Happy Thanksgiving.
Ah, good enough. Thank you very much, Janet.
You're welcome.
Okay. That's it. That's the end of another On the Air with Ken Simmons. That's me, by the way. It's been a great day. If you've never been here, you owe yourself the pleasure. They do a wonderful job. But the people that I talked to here, the Wampanoags and the Cherokees and whoever they were just so articulate, so informative, so nice to me. And Governor Bradford, he was such a great guy. What a great storyteller he is. And it's just, I don't know, I don't know what else to say, except, as Janet just said, Thanksgiving's a special day to me. I know it's a special day to you. I would like you to do me a favor and talk to the God of your understanding and thank him for what you have, especially your family and friends and loved ones. Hug them all, will you? Because sometimes we don't say, I love you enough. And I'm going to say it right now. I love you. Goodbye. And God bless. And happy Thanksgiving.